Hi everybody, thanks for watching the introductory video. Yes, it was a little longer than I thought it was going to be, but I wanted to include as much information as possible. Again, because we're not going to see each other, on a regular basis in a classroom. I think it's better to sort of get as much up front as I can. And if you, have questions, again, please get in touch, hsenate@bridgew.edu, and I will respond certainly as reasonably as I can. So here we are, we're in the first week, and this week we're going to be considering really two major things as we go through the week, as you do the text reading and the homework assignment and be involved in the discussion. The first thing is really defining and understanding what exactly public relations is and what exactly public relations does. It could be a lot more than you think it is. It could be a lot more complicated than you think it is, which is why I'm very much interested in, reading your homework assignments that you, just completed. The second thing we're going to be talking about this week is ethics. And people don't necessarily put public relations and ethics together, but in fact they are very much intertwined. And it's when public relations and ethics are not intertwined that we hear about it in the news. Fortunately, we don't hear about it very often, which means that there are hundreds of thousands of cases where public relations professionals have behaved ethically. Public relations professionals have given ethical advice, and their management has agreed that they were proposing the right thing. Because it's the public relations folks, it's the communications folks that have a handle on the community. It's the public relations folks who, understand how employees feel. It's the public relations folks who understand how the community feels. It's the public relations folks who understand how regulators feel. It's the public relations folks who, understand how the politicians feel. And based on all that information, the public relations professionals are, able to put together, realistic and at the same time ethical advice to their organization heads that will hopefully move a company, profit, nonprofit, in the right direction, particularly when, responding to a crisis, responding to something that, maybe didn't go well, when the tendency may be, the gut reaction may be, okay, let's put a little spin on this, let's try to make us look as good as we can, when in fact, that may not necessarily be the best strategy. One of the things that we'll talk about, going forward is that the best thing to do when you're dealing with a crisis situation, for example, is to just tell the truth. So many times, we've seen organizations who are caught in a tough situation and they let out just enough to answer the question. And then a couple of days later, they have to let out a little more, and they have to let out a little more. And what that does is just a slow drip, drip, drip that impacts the image of an organization much more than it would if in the beginning the organization stepped forward and said, look, this is what we know. I spent a lot of time last semester in teaching this class talking about the situation involving Columbia Gas. I think you might remember that those explosions occurred in Lowell and Andover and North Andover, and it was several hours before there was a response from the company. And then the response was something like, yes, we've heard reports that there have been explosions in the area. And it was just mind-boggling. It was so out of touch, so out of tune. Not only were the Boston media folks reporting what they were saying, but then the Boston media folks were getting on their Twitter accounts. I remember David Wade, for example, from Channel 4, tweeting out the response for Columbia Gas and essentially saying, are you kidding me? And I think, Columbia Gas has been sort of digging out from under that ever since. So, giving the ethical response, giving the right response, sharing the information when you have it is really key. It's something we'll be talking about going forward. I also just want to take a second and talk about something that's happening later on this week, and that's the Super Bowl. If you want to talk about a public relations event, probably one of the biggest public relations events around. And even though the NFL does not do a very good job on a number of levels with issues and responding to them appropriately and understanding public concern, they do a great job with the Super Bowl. And what I wanted to just take a second and mention to you is, just like you to think about the amount of planning that goes into putting together the Super Bowl. I mean, the planning for the next one will start when this one is over. But more importantly, I want you to think about all the teams. I mean, the Patriots and the Rams didn't know they were going to be in the Super Bowl until a week ago. But I can tell you that the Patriots and the Rams and the other teams who are in contention began thinking about being in the Super Bowl long before 2 weeks ago. They probably got together, I don't know, 3 months ago, maybe halfway through the season. I'm not exactly sure. And the discussion probably started with a checklist. Okay, what do we have to think about? What do we have to do if we're lucky enough to get to the Super Bowl? And as the season progressed, and as it looked maybe more and more like teams were going to make the playoffs, maybe they got a bit more serious. Now, obviously, the Patriots have way more experience than just about any other team in the league. Not just about any other team in the league. They have more experience than any other team in the league in dealing with this kind of thing. But that doesn't mean that Stacey James and all the PR and media folks, up in Foxborough, didn't at some point several weeks, if not, several months ago, pulled things out and said, okay, this is what we did last year. What worked? What didn't work? What do we have to think about, going forward? I mean, the game moves from city to city. So, the concerns in one city in terms of logistics and planning are completely different than the logistics in the next city. So it's all things that happen way in advance. And one of the key things about, public relations that, we always need to remember is the huge role that planning plays. Nothing happens by chance. If it's happening by chance, you're not doing your job. So keep that in mind going forward. Keep that in mind as you see things happen this week at the Super Bowl. Keep that in mind, during the game as you, as you see things, and say to yourself, gee, I wonder when they started talking about that. I wonder when they started planning that. Now, because the Super Bowl is on Sunday, both the discussion and the homework assignments are due on Saturday at 6 o'clock. I don't expect anybody to be doing homework on Super Bowl Sunday. I don't expect anybody to be thinking about getting their assignment in on Sunday. I'm going to be traveling. I'm leaving on Thursday, I think it is. My wife is going to a conference in San Diego. And hey, I'm not stupid. I'm going to go somewhere where it's warm for at least a couple of days. So we will be in California for the Super Bowl. We'll be in San Diego. I'm not sure how much of a fan base, the Rams have in San Diego, or the Rams have actually in Los Angeles for that matter. But we will be there with our Patriots gear. It's a conference of realtors from all across the country. So it should be, very interesting. We, expect a lot of, Patriots hate, but we will be ready for it. So enjoy your week. Enjoy the game. Please get, your homework assignments in on time. And I'll be talking with you next week.